Well, I like to start from the beginning, much as I can remember. I first knew what love was from my parents. Okay, and my whole family came from a family of love. My mother was the ultimate love giver, and so was my father. They loved each other unconditionally. They stayed with each other. You couldn't play one against the other. They were together. And God was first and foremost in our family. They taught me and our 6 or 7 of my siblings, and they told me the same thing. They learned who God was through our parents. And I found out as I got older, that was the sustaining thing in their life, God. God always first. And believe me, they had it tough. Not only was my father and mother raising 7 of us, but his mother and his father also lived with us. And we lived in a 2-bedroom house that you open the front door, the back door, the flies come in the front, go out the back door. But some kind of way we made it. We were never hungry. We didn't have the best of clothes, but we had love. And we loved each other. Like I say, I was 6 or 7, and the oldest was Alfred. He was something different, to say the least. He moved to New York City at a really late. First of all, he got my father to sign for him to join the Navy, and that was the beginning of his travels. He was in the Navy, and Alfred always said after years, after he left home, he'd come back, and he knew the Bible backwards and forward. But he claimed he was an atheist. In a family like ours, you say you're an atheist? Wow. So, but his buddy, as I found out later on living in New York with him, his buddy told me they were on the same ship during World War II when the ship got torpedoed. This atheist so-called brother of mine, like everybody else, after that torpedo hit the ship, they dropped to their knees and started praying to God, Lord have mercy. So then there was Stanley. He was a great man. He had so much heart and feelings. And he was taken out of college to be drafted into the Army during the Korean conflict. And he came back, and for a long period of time, he wouldn't speak about it. And years later, he told me, he says, do whatever you want to do, but don't volunteer for nothing. I said, okay. And Stanley put the down payment on my mom and dad's house, which was 2120 Law Street. We grew up 1634 St. Anthony. And like I said, there was 7 of us, mom and dad and my grandparents. There was 11 in the household in a little 2-bedroom house. But we made it. And when I talk, my siblings and I always talk about a pallet. People, what's a pallet? Just throw a blanket on the floor, buddy, and there it is. That's where you slept, you know. But we were happy. And after they put my mom and dad out from 1634, the owner, not because they didn't pay the rent on time, he just wanted a house. So I think it was my father who knew a couple named Buster and Wilhelmina. And they had a little shack on that street? I can't think of the street. But anyway, he moved us into that little shack right by the railroad track. Every time the train passed, the whole just almost shake like it's coming off his foundation. So it was so bad that we couldn't all stay there. Rosanna was married. She's the oldest girl. In fact, she's after Stanley. And Aunt Jewel, moved in with her. My godmother, Juliet, decided to take Aunt Gwenny, take her to Kankakee, Illinois. And I went to New York with my brother Alfred. So that left Mom and Dad, my grandparents, and Boo. So they stayed there a while, and then Stanley got out of the service. And he put the down payment on a house at 2120 Law Street. This is I'm not ashamed of this. Believe me. These are remembrances, tears of joy, family, and I know for a fact everyone in our family was family oriented. My father used to say, I think he told us all, but I know he told me, he said, Harold, there's only two things in this world made sense to him. That was God and family. I pass everything that I was given to my children. And I tell anybody that'll listen what they told me. So, Stanley, he was a great man. Let me backtrack. Alfred was Alfred. And I think that was one of the reasons why I got out in the world too fast, the times I lived with him. And then there was Rosanna, my older sister. She was like a rock. She was big buffalo with her mouth, but her heart was as tender as mother's love. And then there was your Aunt Jewel. She was a beautiful person, just like Rosanna. And she went to college at Dillard, like Stanley. And then there was Aunt Gwenny. And she also went to college. I'm going to backtrack a little bit to Jewel, tell you a little bit about Aunt Jewel. Her husband, Uncle Duffy, he lived in the same block. In fact, on the same side of the street, on St. Anthony. And he would pass the house, and Jewel would tell Annie and everybody, listen, we'll marry that man. And Daddy used to call her Bird. Oh, Bird, you ain't marrying that man. But one thing about our family, when they make up their mind to do something, they're going to do it. And she married Duffy, and they had a fantastic marriage. Just like Stanley married Shirley. And they had, Alfred. I don't know how I should go with it, but Alfred had Joseph and little Joe and Stephanie. And I met Stephanie. There were rumors of other kids Alfred had. Who knows how many different stories, even your cousin Joe. It's just recently at my granddaughter's wedding, Courtney, he was trying to find how many other sisters and brothers he had. I conversed with Jewel, and we come up with the best we could come up with. But Rosanna, Stanley married Shirley, and he had 2 sons, Stanley Jr. and Jeffrey. 2 great little kids. And I miss somebody. That's right, I'm on track. And then it was Rosanna. She had Jonelle and Kevin. And then there was Gwenny. She had your uncle, your father Brian, then your Uncle Wayne. And then this next. Yeah, that's me. I was blessed to have 3 sons, Jeffrey, Stephen, and Kevin. But see, I forgot Jewel. See, Jewel was before me. Jewel came before Gwenny. I was on the right track before he pointed at me. So let me go back after Rosanna. It was Aunt Jewel. She had Michael, Sharon, Janet, and Aurelia. And then there was your grandmother, Gwenny, who had your father, Brian, and Wayne. And now I guess it's me. Then I had Jeffrey. When I had Jeffrey, Stephen, and Kevin. Boo had Eric and Terry. And so that's your siblings as I know, your cousins. And from there, you branched out, and I can't call everybody's children. But at the reunion, I never was so happy as I was in all my life. I'd met a lot of them, and my younger nieces and nephews. And it was such a joy for me that I knew. And I looked at Jewel a couple of times, and I guess we always been on this. I talked about everything and everybody, but I want to go back to now is my childhood. And my siblings. And there came a time where Rosanna got married. I think everyone else, Alfred was in New York, and Stanley was still there at the time. I had been to New York with my oldest brother, Alfred. So my mother said, "You better send that boy home, I'm coming to get him." And I left home. And I don't know, 13, 14 years old, because there was no place really for staying in that little shack, so we split up as a family. And when I went to live with him, it was a whole new world, coming from a little place like New Orleans, Louisiana, to New York City. Like everybody goes up, gawking at the big buildings and so forth, And he took me and showed me everything. He had a totally different lifestyle than I really knew nothing about. Pieces and a little bit I knew from what I've seen in New Orleans, but he was what they call a ladies' man. College educated, traveler all over the country, world I should say. But he exposed me to all kinds of things and then told me, stuff, that's all he called it, stuff. A man is always supposed to have a shark skin suit on, Stacey Adams on his feet, nothing less than a couple of $100 in his pocket. I'm 13. What is this man talking about? Well, he showed me what he was talking about. He lived with this in this big, big building. He told me, I own this. Okay, I don't know how many apartments there was in this building. It's 125th and 7th Avenue. Until one day, I went out and came back in, and I heard him and this lady arguing. This is lady. Alfred, you got to stop bringing all these women here and blah, 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 and so forth. They start arguing. I'm not going to allow this in my house. Without hesitating, the boy looked at her and said, called her name, and he said, your name may be on the title, but I own you, so everything is mine. And she went on back about her business. And I couldn't believe what I heard. And there used to be a little Italian restaurant, not Italian, but a restaurant not far from where, when he wasn't there, I could go eat anything I want to eat. He made provisions. And he gave me boundaries, and I didn't venture. I didn't know where I was going anyway. And he took me everywhere. He took me up and down the East Coast, took me to Yankee Stadium, Polo Grounds, Evans Field, Brooklyn. He just showed me everything. And by the time I came back home, after Mama threatened him, and I came home with that sharkskin suit on, a couple of them really I had, and $500 in my pocket. Told my daddy I was a man. It was so funny, you know. He started laughing. He thought that was the most hilarious thing in the world. And Mama started laughing. He said, Mama told Daddy, said, Moses, I told you, we should have got that boy a long time ago. So, as I grew up, you know, I took all in Alfred in me back to New Orleans. I was a good student. Graduated from high school and top of my class, but I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to get out there in the jungle. And I think your Aunt Jewel and your Aunt Gwenny worked for Sears and Roebuck. And they got me a job out there, porter. So I did that for a while, but still lived with my father. And when I got my first paycheck, Daddy said, well, listen, Harold, you always give your mama something as long as you're living here. No problem, Daddy. Love to give Mama something. You too, you know. But as I grew a little older, I was kind of wild, to say the least. And I really gave my father a very, very hard time by the things I'd done. And I knew it was a challenge for him. And Mama used to always say, he's got God in Moses. He'll be all right. I even brought a woman to the house one day. I got drunk. It was so crazy. And then I used to beg your grandmother, Gwenny, and Jewel, to let me in that little side on the left side where the kitchen was on Law Street. Let me in, because I know I had to go. The only place to go in was on the room on the other side where Mom and Dad slept. Sometimes they let me in, sometimes they wouldn't let me in. And Stanley whipped me a few times, deservingly. Daddy, he caught me smoking a cigarette one time across the street from our church, St. John Divine Baptist Church. And he was coming from work. And about the time I put that cigarette up, there he was. Didn't say nothing. He sent for me as usual, and I knew what that meant. Got no old son, you know. So I had a fantastic childhood with my siblings. We loved each other. Aunt Ju learned how to sew. Aunt Gwenny was just Aunt Gwenny. She was all heart. A total giver. And we used to sit up late at night, cut up potatoes and fry them, and put them on mayonnaise and bread. And those were, you know, the good innocent times in my life. And Stanley left to get married. Young Jew married Duffy. Rosanna had already been married to Joe, Uncle Joe. Then your grandmother married Tyree, and I was getting ready to go back to New York. I think I was probably 20, 21 anyway. I didn't go at the time I thought about going. And for some reason, I waited till I was 22 or 23. And then I got a letter from Uncle Sam. Greetings, we want you. So I was drafted in the service. This was pre-Vietnam. So I went through basic training, MP school, and I wound up here at Fort Harrison, where we're going to have our reunion. And your Aunt Gloria worked at the finance center out there. So I met her. And we palled around for almost the time I was supposed to get out. And I was supposed to get out December the 3rd, because I was drafted December the 3rd, 1960. And I was supposed to get out December the 3rd, 1961, 2-year obligation. I'm sorry, 62. That's not right. December, I was drafted in 60, I was supposed to get out December the 3rd, 1961. Something like that. Anyway, they froze all discharges 3 months prior to me getting out. So first they said we're going to be extended indefinitely, and then 6 months, then they settled on 3 months. So by that time, I had told Gloria, Aunt Gloria, I said, look, when I get out of here, I was making plans, I'm going back to New Orleans and clean up my business, and then coming back and marry you. And I want, so I said, okay. She said, okay. Well, that put a monkey wrench in it. So that was delayed for 3 months. And it turned out where when I came back, I married Gloria in April 28, 1962. And she already had Jeffrey, and we became real good friends during the time I was here before I married her, his mother. I wanted to adopt him, and his father said, well, I may never have another son. So I said, well, you can come see him anytime you want to. You get no problems from me. The guy never showed up, ever. So then Stevie was born in, and Steve was born in 64. So after Steve was born, Jeff said, hey, Daddy, how's everybody in the house named Brown and I'm Harris? So his mother and I had to go through that with him. What that's all about, paternal parents. And one day when he was 13, he came home, and I think this was probably the happiest day of my life. He came to me and his mother and he said, Dad, Mom, I found a way I can get a legal name change at the age of 13. I am a Brown. And so we said we're going to check on it. And Jeffrey was a kid that walked around with a book with him everywhere he went. It seemed like from the first time I met him, he had a book in his hand. And he was right. I think it cost $100 to get the legal name change. So he had a paper out. I used to take him out in the mornings before I went to work. And he said, no, I'm going to pay for it, Dad. But when he said that I can get this legal name change, that was the beginning of my joy. And when I found that he could do this by the state of Indiana at the age of 13, I was the happiest person in the universe. Because he said, Dad, I understand paternal things since your mom explained to him, but you my daddy. Wow. just blew me away. And then when Stevie was before that happened, when Stevie was born, before Jeffrey had his name changed, went to the hospital to pick Stevie up, and Jeffrey sitting in the back seat. I said, "Here's your little brother," and put him in his arms. And then the legal name change came. But like this, 7 years apart, Jeffrey to Stevie to Kevin. Blame that on Gloria. Bless her heart. But then when Kevin was born, he was, it actually was the easiest pregnancy. And so I took her to the hospital, and 1-something in the morning, because all of them was born early in the morning. And the doctor laughed and said, your kid's going to be born way early in the morning. So I had to go back. And I just bought a brand new Electra 225, 1971. And sure enough, about 3:30 in the morning, let's go. Bags already packed. I'm driving to the hospital, picked up a flat tire. I'm about 6 blocks away. I said, I'm going. Gloria said, it's coming. I could see the sparks flying, but we got there okay. And I'm an old hat, I think, at this now, after Stevie. And her doctor was there waiting for us, because I called him. And he said, I'm going there and check on Gloria, and I'll come back and talk to you. Well, before that happened, I'm in a room with her. And during that time, they had to take you out of the room to a delivery room, the mother. All of a sudden, her doctor was Dr. Reagan, who was examining her, and he said, we gotta go. And he pulled the plug on her, and they started pushing her to the operating room. And he started barking, I need this, I need that, stat. I know what that meant, faster than fast. So I'm running right behind him, and then he restrained me at the operating door. And they told me I had to go back, so the nurse said, we got back in the waiting room. I said, like hell, I'm not going there. She said, well, okay, sit in the little nurse's station. So I did. And then she tried to trick me, give me a little something to drink. And I know what that meant. Something calm me down. I didn't want none of that crap. So it seemed like forever. A doctor came out, and he started shaking my hand, not her doctor. And he says, Mr. Brown, it was touch and go in there, but thank God your wife's okay. And I said, what about my baby? He said, she's all right too. Okay. Then Dr. Reagan, her doctor, came in and he says, Harold, he says, it's touch and go in there. We like to lost them both. The afterbirth was coming before he was coming, which could have strangled him, caused complications for her. She could pass. So they had to perform an emergency cesarean, and they took Kevin. And I always look at him as my little blessed child. And they was wheeling Gloria out to her room. And she said, Harold, tell Dr. Reagan to give me what he gave me in there. I said, what the hell did you give her? He said, the smallest dose of morphine that I could give her without getting her addicted. He said, Harold, it was rough on her. And so everything was fine in time. And it was time to pick him up. Kevin and Stevie sitting in the back seat of the car, and brought a little brother out and put him between the both of them. And I said, here's your brother. And the way mom and dad raised us, said, we want you guys to always love each other. And God and family first. And then I started a little thing with my sons, and he put my hand in the middle. All for one and one for all. If I do that today, they're coming in. And so I guess that's about it. But I could say about my childhood, my siblings. And I think I said something that I got a little more to say though. I think I said something that family reunion. My mother is a saint, and my father's right there with her. And I had to do something years later. I don't know, 1965. I told Gloria, I said, I got to take a little ride. She said, I said, I got to take a little ride to New Orleans. She said, Mom, Dad, all right? Everybody all right? I said, everybody's all right. But I need to see my father. If you knew me then, like a sibling, like John Jules was the last one to tell, but John Jules married Duffy and they traveled all over the country during the time he was in the Air Force. But she was there for a lot during those years I was growing up. So Gloria said, well, I'm coming with you. I said, no, it's something I got to do, babe. You know, she said, I'll make plane reservation. I said, no, I need to drive. And I knew what I had to do. And I wanted to keep my head clear. That's why I drove. I'm going to be in a hurry. But I remember pulling in front, 2120 Law Street. Daddy was sitting on the porch with a little U-shirt on and T-shirt, undershirt, eating something and drinking his pop. And when I pulled up, he kind of leaned over and trying to see who was in his car. And when I got out, he jumped up and he said, Aurelia, that boy is home. Just like that. Mama came running out. First thing out of my mouth, is everybody all right? What's wrong? Something wrong with Gloria? She started calling the kids' names, you know. No, Mom, everything's fine. No, it's not. No. I said, Mama, everybody's fine. And so I went up the steps and, boy, we started hugging. And Mama said, you hungry? I'm going to fix you something to eat. So I was sitting out on the porch with my father. And I said, Daddy, I said, it's funny how when two people know each other, like my father and I knew each other. I'm the child, he's always will be my father, no matter how old I ever got. And that's always respect. And I said, Daddy, he said, what's on your mind, son? And I said, well, I'll come to see you. And my father, I never seen a whole lot of emotions out of him. With tears. And I saw a little water welling in the corner of his eyes. And so I said, well, I got up and sat next to him and I started hugging him. And I said, Daddy, I just come here to tell you thank you and ask for your forgiveness. He knew what I was going to say before I said. He said, that's all right, Harold. I understand. And I said, maybe, Daddy, but I got to say it. And I used to run around there talking about I'm a man, blah, blah, you know, young age. And he told me something that stayed with me always. A man is not a man because of his age, as the law says in society. A man is a man because of responsibilities, first to God and to himself. That's what makes a man. And I relayed that to him. And I said, I'm here to thank you and ask for your forgiveness. We cried like two little kids out there, but these were tears of joy. I had to go, Jennifer, because I didn't want to pass before I said, I'm sorry to my father, and I understood what he did for me and what he always tried and wanted for me. I didn't want him to leave. Not hearing me say that. I didn't want to go. And he's here, and he's still worried about that boy. And so, God in his own way works everything out. And it's always for the best, Jennifer. And the truth is of everything is the beginning. When I stated that, what I was taught, God first and family, and that holds today for all of us. I am an emotional type person. These are tears of joy because I know that grand old man and that grand old lady, my mother and my father, they're smiling down on all of us. Alfred, Rosanna, Stanley, Gwen and Boo, they're with him. And they all praying for young Jewel and me. That one day we could join them. And the reunion I started to talk about it was when I looked around and saw family, all family. It was something that Mama always talked about. Always talked about her babies, and your grandmother Gwenny, she got that from your grandmother. She always called you her babies. And I could see in your Aunt Jewel's eyes today when she looks at her children, the closest people to her. She looks at her brother, and she looks at our entire family. At that reunion, we were both that high off the ground. And it's such a blessing that God let me see this to come to fruition. The first family reunion, now we're planning on the second. And I would hope that my sons and your father and mother and Wayne, Jonelle, Kevin, Terry, don't let me forget nobody, please. If I did, I didn't mean to. Stanley and Jeffrey, they see total family. And as my father said, God first and family always stay together. The other thing is, Mom used to say something too, because I asked her, Mama, how could you show love, equal love to all of us? I was a little bitty boy, and she was a hugger. She hugged you so tight, she'd almost squeeze the breath out of you. And she said, let me tell you, baby, she said, when one of you guys need me and your father the most, we're going to spend a little extra time with you. But never, ever sacrificing the love from your siblings for one another. We love you all. We just spend a little more time because you need a little more. And she said, the biggest thing, I think she told me, I think she told us all, love is not selfish. If somebody show you love, you have to pass it on, Jennifer, because it's not selfish. And Jesus is love. It breaks down barriers, takes the hardest of heart, and make them humble. Love does that thing. And this is where I'm going to stop unless you have more questions. This is where, in the family I was born with, this is what we're all about, love.
Mm-hmm. You answered a lot of my questions, actually. I was gonna...
Did I?
Yeah, you did. You did a good job. You did. That was amazing. I want to ask you a little more about my grandmother, because she was you. She took care of you, didn't she? Did she take care of you?
I was her baby.
Yeah.
The way it was Mom and Daddy always sensed that from the beginning. Alfred, when he was older than Stanley, the oldest takes care of the youngest, the one underneath them. And so Alfred had Stanley. Stanley had Rosanna. Rosanna had Jewel. Jewel had grandmother Gwenny. Gwenny had me, and I had Boo, who was, wow. Let me talk about your grandmother. I get to you a little bit about we fried potatoes and stuff. But she was like my little mother. The difference like 3 years or something apart. That's basically, I think, where we all were. But she was more like my mother than anybody. I couldn't pass her unless she hugged me. And so, I mean, it sounds, silly, but, and believe it or not, you get used to that. You get used to those hugs. And if you don't get those hugs, you want to know why. But I never had to wonder why. I always got the hugs. And she was a giver from deep in her soul. I've never seen her have no ill will to nobody, ever. She would give you actually the blouse off her back, and I never seen her not smiling. And I know times in her life, like all of us, you don't want to smile because you're dealing with some things that's not bringing you no joy. But she more like my mother than any of us. She found a way to do that. And I remember telling her when we little, she was kind of shy about her freckles. And I used to hug her and I used to say, I'm gonna kiss every one of them beautiful freckles. I used to always tell her how beautiful she was. And she was. Not just from the physical end, but what's inside that brings the beauty out. You could be angry inside, and it's going to show on your face. Okay? You can smile on the outside, and it gives you what you got from the inside. You are portraying what's in the inside of you by what people see facially. And your grandmother, she like my mother, our mother, she was a hugger too. And she always called me one day, God, till the day she almost passed the last time I saw her. She hugged me as tight as my mother hugged me. And she'd always say, I'd call her every night. Jewel would call her, like we did with Boo. When she got sick, how she doing, and she'd always turn it around. How's my baby doing? What my babies are doing beyond me. They talk about my kids, right? And she was kid-oriented. Because my mother, she took in kids. She told my father, after See, Gwenny got married. Drew got married. Stanley was gone. Rosanna was married. Drew got married. Your mother got married. And I was about ready to leave, and she said, I'm not going to live in this house without no children. She told my father. My daddy said, look at here, little red woman. I don't have no hair on my head now. You talking about taking in some kids? And she did. She took foster kids in and raised them. And they would come back to see her as they got older when they left. She was a remarkable woman. And so was my father, as a man. But the feelings I think we all have, and that stem from our mother. Because she tell me all the time, don't ever be ashamed about your feelings. If you want to cry, cry. If you want to laugh, laugh. Jesus wept. He wept because they didn't believe him. It hurts when people don't believe what you telling them and you know it to be the truth. And someone who shows you love and it's not reciprocated. But that does not stop a giver. A giver keeps on giving, just like Jesus Christ. And you guys have a total rich heritage that you could look back on. I had tried one time to get my kids and everybody, all my nieces, nephews, track our family tree, but they can only get so far. And they hit the wall. And but what we know from my parents, and we had the benefit of growing up also with my father's mother and my father's father. That's kind of tough for my mom at that time. Mom was an acceptor, giver. They got along well, very well. And there was a little contrast of differences between your Aunt Jewel and your Aunt Gwenny, who loves who more, blah, blah, blah. That's sibling stuff. And my grandfather, he was a little short guy. My grandmother was almost 6 feet. So he would take me in his little old raggedy truck sometimes, take me around. And my daddy never had a car until he was in his 50s. And so he didn't have a car until he was in his 50s. And he got a little beat-up little car. And they had a grocery store in the corner. He's going to teach Mama how to drive. She pulled away from the curb on Law Street, and the place was across the street on the corner. She turned the wheel straight to that grocery store. And Daddy finally got the car stopped. But it was, I tell you what, I don't believe nobody in this world, and I wouldn't trade no childhood in this world for the childhood I had and the parents that we had. I don't think I know from as what they taught me about things and what's the true meaning of what you have. I think any of us could be up today and way down tomorrow, monetary-wise, whatever. Wouldn't make a slight difference. They're still the same person. They understood what we were taught, the values. It's not how much you got. What's important that you have. God, family. And so, if I missed anything, Jennifer.
Let's see. Well, you can talk a little more about your grandparents, if you remember a little bit more about your grandparents.
My grandmother, she took in washing and ironing. Everybody had to do something. My grandfather had this little truck. He was hauling different stuff around. And My grandmother cooked, cleaned with my mother, helped my mother around the house, and raised us. We had two mothers, and we had two fathers. I enjoyed all of it. And even the whippings I used to get, so forth and so on, deservingly. And one thing I'll say about my father, I thought he was hard, but he was a puppy. Really. He beat me a lot of times. Boy, I don't want to beat you. I didn't want to do that. Well, I'm saying, if you're that hardcore man that I thought you were, why would you beat me and then say, boy, I didn't want to beat you? He wasn't that hardcore. But he did what he had to do in the form of discipline me. To let me know and make me a better person, and I grew into to be a better man. And what did I miss? Oh, my grandparents. Well, I tell you, they were like second mom and dad. Like, my grandfather gave me more leeway than my father. Not to say that he gave me any kind of leeway versus what was right and what was wrong. Never crossed each other. Just like mom and dad never. I couldn't go to one and play one off for another. That's a no-no. Same thing with my grandmother. My grandmother, every time I left the house as I got older, she would say, you got your handkerchief, your shirts, She wanted to make sure they were like hands on me. They were hands on with your grandmother, with your Aunt Jewel, Rosanna, Alfred, all of them, And like I said, it was difficult times sometimes for both of them. My mother and my father's mother and my father's wife. They had some differences that families do from time to time, but we worked it out. There was never no big scene,
Did you know your mother's grandparents, mother's parents?
I never knew anybody on my mother's side.
No, Henry
and I'm not sure whether from Alfred on down to Boo. Drew we were talking a few years back, and she had some remembrance of somebody. Now, my mother had a brother, Uncle George, and he's married to my Belle. And he had a cousin, the Stantons, and but I didn't know. They're not Fanny, cousin Fanny. My mother's or my father's cousin Fanny. So when they're cousins to them, they were our cousins too. And so that part of my family life, I don't know. I really can't go. Me personally, I can't go beyond my parents' parents, my grandfather and grandparents.
See. Well, I have a couple little more questions, but did you want to take a break?
No.
You good? Okay.
I'm good.
I wanted to ask. I found a video of Mount Boo singing.
No.
I know she loved to sing. And do you sing at all? Or I know the family loves to sing. I hear Aunt Jewel was singing.
I knew this was coming, and I'm gonna tell you like I tell everybody else. I can't even carry water, let alone a tune. But Boo, I didn't talk much about Boo, and I should have. And talk a little more about my father, because my father, he loved choirs, church singing. He was a cult follower for choirs and concerts. He would lead church and go to those plays. I used to go with him too. And music was part of our life. Aunt Gwen could pound on that piano and organ. They'd sing all the time. It was church. My mother was in a choir. She had a beautiful voice. My dad sang in a choir for a while. And but the voice really came from Boo. That girl, Lord have mercy, she could sing. She could make you cry. And I remember when my mom couldn't take care of herself. There was no such thing back in those days as a nursing home. And so Boo, I think, at the time was married to Edward, Preacher Edward. And she cared for Mama. And she just fussed over some of my little baby, you know. Sing to her. Oh God, Mama's eyes just light up a Christmas tree when Boo opened her mouth to sing. And I think that Gwenny had a organ or a piano, and come Jewel. And they had church all the time. They had their devotions and so forth. So, but Boo could tear the church down with her singing. And boy, so we grew up happy. But the thing that I love the most, Jennifer, is how close we always were to the end, and how close young Jules are now. It's a blessing that she lives here. We're close to each other, so we talk all the time. And it goes without saying that we all have our moments. When I talk about my mother, my father, my grandparents, and my siblings, I miss them so much. But then I have her to hug, console each other. We have each other. And Jewel is precious. Precious. So one more question or any more questions, and I'm going to leave it for Jewel. Julie?
Harding Park.
Huh?
Harding Park.
Harding Street?
Harding Park, down Law Street.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I used to play ball down there. And I never got a chance to participate in high school sports. Boy, I wanted to, but various reasons I just couldn't get there and do it. And I had obligations. I remember Daddy said, "You got a week to wash dishes?" Well, man, I got 4 sisters. He looked at me and he started laughing. He said, "Boy, do you eat every day?" In the store. Yeah. But, you know, I did the normal little things that kids do. Never had nothing new in my life. As a toy, we used to go to Daddy's take us to Audubon Park around Christmas time and wait for a gift. I guess one year I got a pair of skates. Hi, Sharon. How you doing, beautiful?
Good.
Sharon. Oh, we just have we're almost done. We have a little bit of quiet. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And one day Christmas I got a pair of skates, and after I got through skating, I found a way to take that lug off. I made a skate-mobile. And the biggest Christmas gift I ever got was Daddy bought me a second-hand bicycle. And did I trick that little thing up, you know. You know, Jennifer, we were so poor, we didn't even know we were poor. But we were happy, you know. And I used to throw rocks at the little Italian or Jew boy across the street at the store. That was fun, because he was cheating everybody. Parents, they have credit on the book, and then when the time to pay off, he'd steal pennies and stuff. So I threw rocks at him every time I seen him. Other than that, I had the normal stuff outside of the park. It's about 5-6 blocks away. Play a low ball down there. The other thing was just playing around the neighborhood with kids, skating, ride your little bicycle or skate-mobile, stuff like that. That was normal. Because when you lived in an environment with nothing, that's what you had to do. You find ways, Turn out to be a good marble shooter. And I bagged groceries at Swagman Brothers and make a little nickel and a dime and stuff. Went to the movies, things of that nature. It was a good life. Mama told Daddy, she says, Moses, all my kids are going to college. He did it again with Dad. Little red woman, look, I don't have no hair on my head now. How we gonna do this? And she said, the same way we always done it. Pray to God and He'll take care of the rest. Believe in Him and He'll take care of the rest. And I look around, wow. I may be the only one that didn't go to college. Well, I went later on when I was working for Lilly's, but I just took a lot of chemistry courses to better my position out there working in the research lab at Lilly's. But I had no desire to go there and got out too early. But yeah, Mama said that.
And how hard would Papa work to get you guys to college? How hard would he work? Like what?
Daddy never stopped working. Daddy caught a bus to go work on a river in the hull of a ship called Longshoreman. He'd always come home with a little package under his arm, some food or something from work the day he worked. You had to stand outside, wait for his name to be called to even go to work once he got there. And my daddy worked hard. And so did my mother. She took in washing and ironing. Took care of them little Peckerwood girls and boys and clean up houses, and stuff like that. No, they worked hard. My daddy, he was a tired man when he came home. And so was my mother. They did what they had to do. And work ethics, I think we all got from our parents. If you want something, you go get it. You got to pay a price to get it, but it can be done if you want it. And I look back at it, Alfred, Stanley. Rosanna went to college, but she didn't finish. She was a nurse. Jewel, she finished college. Your grandmother, Gwenny, she finished college. I didn't want to go, but I wound up going anyway. Taking some classes later on in life when I was working. And Jan Boo didn't go to college, but it all worked out. And I looked around from what happened to all of my siblings' children, and I look at, we got so many professions. It's fantastic, and we got almost the market cornered on everything. You name it, it's in the family. And so, yeah, my father worked like a Hebrew slave for his family and never complained once.